Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Today I have a special guest with me, Asia Burks. How
Hi,
are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a rough week. I think partly you have kind of like the holidays on your mind. I could use a few more hours of sleep, but overall, it's going really well today though. So I'm encouraged about the rest of the week. How about
Uh,
you?
That's good. I'm glad you're encouraged. I am doing all right. I have been very busy, um, productive busy. So it's not a bad thing. Um, so I'm I'm good with crossing things off my list. So
Yeah, yeah. There's like a joy to like just checking it off and just kind of
oh,
seeing, okay,
agreed.
yeah. So, first of all, I try to ask all my parents about virtual learning, virtual school, virtual like how's that going? Like, like how old are your children? Like, how is that balance? Like, how are you guys handling that right now?
So that's actually hasn't been a problem for us because my kids are 3 and 4 and
Uh,
preschool is open. So, or daycares. So they are a daycare, but their daycare is very small and there's only 9 kids
okay,
uh, in each room. So because they're in separate rooms. And like we can't go into the school or the
yeah,
school, and they are masked up. We have to be masked up when we pick them up and drop them off. And so um, I haven't heard any things. It's been pretty good.
yeah.
The boys I mean, because they like talking about everything, they are very observant and will and just share everything.
Okay,
So,
yeah,
but it's been pretty good. So, um, I am thankful that we have that opportunity to be able to do that. Um, Otherwise, it would be very challenging, very challenging.
yeah, yeah. I have a 4-year-old boy who, yeah, daycare, pre-K program, and but he was here for the first 6 months,
Yeah.
and he was gonna have to find somewhere else to live soon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, two two boys in that same like age range. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you've had somewhere to put them, and thank goodness, you know, there's so many things to be worried about, but we've been, same way, masked up. They're taking my temperature because I'm dropping off,
Mhm.
my temperature when I pick up, mask, uh, social distancing, like between the
Yeah.
parents and the children. So they've been doing a really good job. It makes me feel better about
Yeah.
everything. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah, and I know that they're very well, I mean, they were a very clean place prior to COVID, but I can tell in how my kids wash their hands. Like they're sitting there and they're actually washing their hands and very thorough and they're counting to 20. So they still, I mean, they've been doing that. You can tell it's something that it's more of like a behavior that they've picked up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've noticed some things with my 4-year-old too, where it's just, yeah, it's starting to be ingrained. He'll
Hmm.
get home and instead of take his mask off, he'll just like put it down, like
Hmm.
he'll wear it. I'm like, you're on, baby. You can take it off now, but they definitely are learning some good stuff more than I would be able to teach them, or me and my wife. Um, so first of all, tell me what you do, sort of your background, and then I want to hear about the business and the transition, and all that good stuff.
Okay, so what do I do? I'm a mental health therapist. I have my master's degree in clinical social work. I am also a supervisor, a clinical supervisor, and I'm getting my doctorate in counseling, education, and supervision. So I defend next month. So hopefully, so not hopefully, I will pass.
That's
Um,
right.
I will successfully defend, I should say. I have been in the mental health field since 2004, and I love the work that I do. I love helping other people. I have a practice, so I'm also an owner of a business, a mental health group practice in Southfield, Michigan, and our practice is focused in trauma, individuals who have experienced trauma, and that's really any type of trauma that they've identified. Um, so most of my clients, but not all, have had childhood experience of trauma. They're adults, but have had childhood experience of trauma. And really working really hard to not take that experience into their own children in
Mm.
their lives. So, or other relationships that they have in their life. Um, so I just really enjoy that work. And my other employees, they are working with children, they're working with adults. Yeah, but so I'm also an owner.
But that's awesome. And the name of the company,
Oh yes, it's Transformative Mind Counseling. Good to know.
yeah, yeah. And you started that in 2018, right?
Yep, 2018, so almost 3 years.
That's so before we get there, tell me what led you to say, you know, I want to have my own practice. I want to be an owner. I want to employ people, and like, what was your vision for transformative mind when it was just sort of a concept?
Yeah. When I first started this, well, I guess leading up to that, I think at 18, 19, 20, if you would have told me I would have a business, I would laugh hysterically, like, oh really? Wow. Yeah, right. But but I worked in, like I was saying, I work in mental health for years, and I worked with a lot of individuals who did not look like me.
Mm.
And I wanted to be able to provide services to individuals who did. And provide a space of healing and wellness that is completely centered in a Black experience or person of color experience. And so that's another aspect of our business is really focusing in on those different cultural perspectives and dynamics of the individual, and to also incorporate that into healing. And in lots of different areas, I did not see that. And I was also looking for that in my, even with me looking for someone. So I decided um, that I wanted to create that. I wanted to create the space in Metro Detroit area, in the Metro Detroit area for, I mean, the area is, 70, 80% Black.
Right.
And yet there are spaces that, that do focus on that. But I just saw a space to be able to create that. So I decided to do that. My practice is not only a group practice, but will grow into a training institute that is also connected in supervision and cultural practices, and incorporating that into counseling sessions and um, anti-racism practices and liberation work. So, which is some of the stuff that we do now with trainings with other organizations. But yeah, so we're expanding to
That's
that. And that's what I really have a passion into.
that's awesome. So let me ask you, from a clinical standpoint, if if I culturally, right, there are just things that are different. Wherever you're from, if it's a different culture, there's so if you are going into, if I'm walking into your office, you know, it's always like the stereotype is like I'm laying on the couch, right? So I'm laying on the couch, and you got your notepad here, and I'm from a different culture. Let's say I'm a white um, man, you're a black woman, or I'm a black man, you're a white woman. Some of the things that I am sort of sharing with you, are they just being missed?
And so research wise has shown that to be true. But it's only on an individual standpoint. So depending on that therapist and their own um, concept of culture and integrating that into treatment and recognizing that there's difference in the room and speaking to that, um, that's where it depends on the clinician, but there's research that does show and support that it is missed. And
Yeah,
because the idea or the concept is that we're just humans, come is and so you're here for help and as a human and me loving and wanting to support other people, I'm going to do that. But it completely misses the social and cultural and social aspects that we as Black or people of color or even other diverse populations
true.
experience. And so without being able to talk about those, then you're completely missing the person as a whole. So
Yeah.
I'm not really getting what I need from my therapy.
Yeah, like I think about it um like my kids that they go to, like, let's say they go to a white doctor, and there are just things that just we may notice that the doctor may not. And if you don't have that experience, see, as black people in America, we typically have a much better understanding of like white culture, um, whereas that's not always the case on when the shoe's on the other foot, right? So
Yeah.
they're just blind spot. There's not it's some of that unconscious bias stuff. It's not necessarily somebody that's blatantly, they're being neglectful. They just missed it. It's just not something they're used to sort of dealing with. And
Yeah.
I imagine there could be, first of all, just not a lot of healing going on.
Hmm.
But then just do you have the studies, research like shown like misdiagnosis, or like what sort of things do you happens on the when there's like a cultural sort of disconnect?
Yeah, there's research that supports that like for instance, African American boys have a higher diagnosis rate of ADHD when their symptoms are actually related to anxiety and or maybe they've experienced a lot of trauma and that's why their anxiety is showing up in a certain way. But because it's not showing up in the textbook traditional whitewashed idea of anxiety, um, we're we're thinking that it's ADHD. So then they're treating ADHD, but that's not what the child has. So there are some misdiagnoses or studies that shows that, for instance, Black boys are have a higher rate of being diagnosed with ADHD when it might be something else.
Hmm, that's interesting. That's interesting. You mentioned sort of anxiety. um I'll get to that later, but so, well, let's just get into it now. So I mentioned before we got on air that I just haven't been sleeping well, right? Like I'm not, me, I'm pretty much like this all the time. Like I'm not very excitable. I like to have fun, and there's definitely a sillier, looser side of me, but I'm pretty much like this. So I don't carry my stress in ways that some other folks do.
Mm,
But what tends to happen with me when I start to get overwhelmed, even before I realize it, it's always subconsciously where like I'm typically able to fall asleep, but then like I'm when I'm up, like I run to the bathroom when the kids get up, and then my minds are like it's just going, and I
mhm.
can't quiet it down enough to sort of like get back. It's like we, and we talk about the kids, we talk about like them self-soothing, right? It's
Mhm.
like they got to learn to put themselves back to sleep. Now it's me. It's 3:30 in the morning. I'm thinking about my day, my week ahead, right?
Mhm.
And I can't self-soothe. So
Mhm.
like, is that common? Like, like what should I be doing, Asia?
I think it's depending on the person and their experiences or their stress. It can be connected in lots of different ways. It may not necessarily mean that you're unable to self-soothe. It might also there could be other different aspects that are connected to it. Are the things that are around us, the things that makes our mind continue to go, us not being able to quiet down. Maybe the TV's on, like there could be lots of different things. But then also there's this um it could also there could be aspects of it that could also be connected to our food and what we're consuming too. So, and that doesn't mean like, oh, I have an upset stomach and so I can't sleep, but just like it, we're our food is for nourishing our body, and so sometimes we put things that aren't necessarily nourishment
Yeah,
to our body. So it can impact our sleeping habits.
that makes sense.
Um, and then if we're under a significant amount of stress, we also might have that as well play a part. So I can't. My body is working overtime in other aspects to make sure that I'm functioning well, and which is then impacting my sleep. So there could be lots of different factors,
Yeah,
that could be playing into it, and sometimes it could be just related to, like, an acute stressor, like, it's Christmas time, and I got all this stuff I gotta do, and now
yeah,
I gotta think about all these different things and people coming over and making sure people are safe and, like, or not coming over and then having to deal with telling my family you can't show up and, like, there's so many different aspects, of just, like, an acute stress that can also impact our sleeping habits too. So there's lots of factors
yeah,
that can play into it. Um, but one thing that we do know is that we do need adequate sleep to be able to function well. So um, so that's one of the things that gets impacted really easily.
mm. It's funny. Like I noticed that when I'm able, because many times it takes a few days where I realize, man, I haven't really slept very well, but it's all subconscious, like, and then consciously, I haven't even realized I was like trying to process all of these things.
Mhm.
And then typically when I start to write things out, I start to like relax, and I have like I'm sort of more at ease. Just I
Mhm.
think it's just organizing my thoughts maybe, and just kind of just trying to identify whatever those stressors are.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, because sometimes we're so bogged down with so much stuff that's happening that we don't want to deal, but then that doesn't help us with our sleep because our brain is still going.
Yeah,
So sometimes being able to clear our minds, be able actually dealing with or tackling the stuff that is consuming us, kind of helps relieve some of that brain space
yeah,
being
yeah.
overworked.
Well, I should probably start writing then. Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's good. You talked about trauma, um, anxiety. I've read and I've mentioned on my pod a handful of times like that the suicide rate since this pandemic is increased like over 200%. Like, are those numbers the same, like around the same numbers that you've like stayed in front of or like research? And then like, what's the best way for people to try to cope with the isolation, with all of the uncertainty, whether it be their jobs, their health, family, etc.?
Yeah, I think that this COVID has brought on um, lots of things that no one prepared for. There's no way that anyone can prepare for a pandemic. But one of the things that make it really hard is isolation. That's really does a lot. And one thing with the pandemic is that we can't connect the way that we typically would because we don't want to infect someone or get infected. So we're hopefully doing our due diligence to keep number or get the numbers to go down. And so with that, um that impacts how we're starting to s- do we're not we don't the things that we have that might have been our coping mechanisms might not be easily accessible to us anymore, and so we have to find new ways that are still healthy to then cope. But for sometimes that's even more challenging. So I think that when we're in isolation, one although it can feel like work, one of the 2 things that I can think of, that are beneficial is being very intentional about the, interactions that we have with other people when we do have them, and also creating those moments virtually as well. So even though I might live by myself, and be spending a whole lot of time in isolation, that I am being intentional about engaging with other people on the phone or Zoom or Google Meets, like whatever platform I have, or
Yeah,
iPhone, and still being able to connect with people, even though it's not a physical connection.
sure.
Um, and then also, and this is a little bit more challenging being in Michigan, but going outside, getting fresh air, because we might be in a home or an apartment where we're just getting that centralized unnatural air. And so being outside, taking a walk, or even just walk the parking lot or walk around the block just once, or walk from one house, the next door neighbor's house and back home, outside on the sidewalk, like just getting yourself out, and breathing in really good air, is beneficial to your body. If we're in another state where it might be warmer, you might be able to be outside a little bit longer than here, but still getting yourself out there. And then also going back to that virtual connection, is even connecting. That a benefit of the virtual, that we have access to the virtual, is that we can connect to more people. So connecting to groups
Mm.
in different ways. So maybe it is a workout group, that I can join, or there's an art class that's online that I can join. So I'm still connected with other people, even though it's virtually and I'm doing something. But trying our best to be intentional about the connections that we're trying to make.
Yeah, no, that's good. First of all, the high was supposed to be 50 today, so we should probably get out today.
Yeah, get some fresh air.
Yeah, yeah. While you can, if you're in Michigan in the Detroit area. Um, I had a book club meeting last week, and you just never know who's gonna show. It's on Facebook, but then people will chime in, and people were excited about the book, and then it's like, okay, it's Friday night. Like, okay, who's gonna actually show up? Um, Even if it's virtual, right? It's still like I could be doing a million other things. And so we had a really good turnout on Friday. And I think people are, yeah, just like looking for those opportunities to connect, like for sure. And
Mhm.
we, and my sister, one of my sisters, she'd rather hear from me. Like she doesn't like text. She's just very old school like that. And I was thinking about her, and I'm like, oh, I need to like call her.
Mhm.
Like I try to text and let her know I'm thinking about her. But I know that she wants more. And then I was like, how long has it been, right? So just old folks would say it, where they say, "Oh, so good to hear your voice," and you'd be like, "Okay."
Mhm.
You get older, and you start to realize like that stuff is important, especially now where you don't have as much contact as you would typically have, right?
Yeah.
Um, your practice, your going on 3 years.
Hmm.
You guys are growing. You have all of these plans that you want to sort of that you're already in, from the training standpoint and all these other things. How are you outlining this stuff, and like how are you able to see the forest from being in the middle of the trees?
Um, I think that I am a dreamer. So I have big ideas, really, really big ideas, but big ideas don't really service anyone unless there's work in there. And so I think my brain always goes to the forest because like this is what I want. And then I have to break down and look at the trees. And I'm okay with looking at the trees because I have the idea of the forest already. So with that, I, and I mean that in a sense that I'm not getting overwhelmed by the big idea. I just know that I have to take everything in steps. So I create the steps to be able to get them. And I'm also aware that the steps that I create might not be the actual correct steps to take, but I'm creating a step.
But you're
So
putting something in place.
I'm putting it together. So that's kind of how I do it. And I think that, to be honest, um, I think my brain is already like a big thinker person, but being in school has forced me to create because I had large projects and things that it forced me to create smaller avenues to
Yeah,
create things because otherwise I would get overwhelmed with everything because I'm like, why isn't this panning out the way I want it to? This is my big idea. So I think that it's for me, it's more of like I see forest, and now it's like now I'm creating the streams of everything so that the forest can actually be what I want it to be.
that's awesome. I think about myself, and I make mention of my daughter a lot because she's 7, she's in second grade, and we have a very similar brain, and I feel awful because I gave it to her. But she, I try to figure out how would I talk to myself at 7, how would I, how to engage her. And the biggest thing, the thing I think about most than anything, is developing good habits. We are big thinkers, idea people, right? My son is a doer already. He's 4, but he does things.
Mhm.
They give him homework, they give him his little tracing homework, um, and he knocks it out. He may play around. He's 4, but then it's like, oh, come on, dude, and he knocks it out. When my daughter was in that pre-K program and she was 4, it took us all night to do a couple of tracing sheets because she's just like, man, I'd rather be doing something else. So when I think about myself, she has the big ideas already. Um, she said to me today, um, she was able to go to my job for the first time today. We went in to pick up a few things that I need to pick up. She hadn't seen the new office and everything, and so she's looking at it. And she knows it's insurance. She doesn't know whatever. She doesn't know like, oh, dad does benefits, and it's different than she doesn't know that, but she knows it's insurance. So we get home and she says, Daddy, your group, who's your competition? And I
Mhm.
said, I'm thinking she's talking about the nonprofit stuff. What group is she talking about? I'm like, baby, what do you mean? Your group? Like what? Like who's your competition? Like, and then she made a comparison. She said like, did she say like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donut? She made a comparison, two companies. She said Wendy's and McDonald's. That's what she said. She said like Wendy's, like in competition with McDonald's. She goes, "Are you guys? Are you competitors? Are you in competition with like Geico Insurance?" And I was like, "You are so smart. Like, I don't know." It was half hour when we got home. It was like it was on her brain.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets that. She understands from a very high level already, right? What I didn't, what I lacked, especially back then, was someone teaching me how to be a good student.
Mm-hmm.
Like the repetition that comes with okay, it's time to do your homework. It's time to do this or that, right? And building those good habits so that she can zoom in, knock out those tasks, and then zoom back out and maybe that's where she flourishes, but she can still take care of the things and kind of put them into practice because a lot of good ideas die never seeing the light of day because the, there is either isn't someone on the team or they didn't build a team
Yeah.
or they don't have the skill set to sort of get it down on paper and start, like you said. It may not be perfect, but let's put something down and then we
Mm-hmm.
can adjust. We can't adjust anything if there's nothing there
Mm-hmm.
to begin with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. School's not not school doesn't teach us how to do those things. Um School teaches how to be good workers. And well, their attempt is to be good workers. However, um, our education, I mean, we have wonderful, wonderful teachers, but our teachers are also, I think, clipped by the educational system and how they can provide the structure or teaching or learning that they want. Um, and I mean that more of like a public standpoint than
Sure.
than private or any other aspect. Um, but with that, I think that the I don't know if I necessarily was taught either. I think it was something that was more trial and error for myself. But what I will say is that I know that my 4-year-old is a big thinker person, and so with that, I mean, he has ideas for days and is very. I mean, he's at the age of very imaginary things, and he makes up words all the time, and just a whole bunch of stuff. So it's more of like timing things out. Okay, you got to get this done, and then you can do this, and then you got to get this done, and you got to do this. You got to and then it's just the same routine. So routine happens, and then he just does it because it's just routine.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that's I mean, this is me, first time parent, trial and error too. But I think that it can be beneficial to him. We do the same thing every single day, and there's no, I mean, there's of course there's little variations
Right.
within it, but he knows this is what we do, and there's fun time, and there's um time that's not so fun, or maybe there's some days that are actually a whole lot more fun than it's than structure, like on a Saturday.
Yeah.
um but he knows, oh, it's Friday's pizza day, Fridays, like
Yeah.
it's the same thing, and it helps him feel secure, I think. um and helps him do the things that are not really his jam. He's not really he's not the sit down and tracer. you know
Yeah.
but he would do it because it's
It's
the time.
leading to something else. Yeah. No, and it's just like anything else. Like, you the kids get here, you gotta like train them to sleep, right? And sometimes they end up training you. And
Mine is right now.
so that routine, a lot of it falls on us because we have to be disciplined enough to be consistent with our expectations, holding them accountable.
Mhm.
It's so easy to say, you know what, just sure you can have your 15th snack of the day, or you
Mhm.
know what, you can have a little bit more screen time because I don't have nothing left in the tank,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of it falls on us to just make sure that we are being diligent. And it's not always easy, man. It's not always
No, I mean, and we're just talking about a typical, an easy world. Like if we have a whole bunch of other stressors and things to deal with, like maybe financially, I can't do that, or I have to work late, so I don't have the ability to be able to create that type of structure where I'm always around them and doing that,
easy. Right.
or I have to work from home, and so there's there are all these other different factors that do play in, but we do know ideally we want to try to create as much as we can, but definitely, and I mean that in regards to like just structure in regards to like getting stuff that needs to be done. But outside of that, it's just like just the love is what they is what ultimately is what they really need.
Yeah.
And they're gonna learn through the loving process that you provide to them as
Yeah.
well. So
So I want to ask you one question about the kids in general. Um, if there was one thing that you could try to get through to them, like one piece of advice that they don't listen to nothing mom says, but there's one thing, like what would that one thing be that you would want them to kind of hold near and dear?
um that they are capable of any and all things more than anyone has will ever tell them that they are,
Mm,
even outside of me. So, because I think it's as Black boys, there would be lots of times where people tell them that they are not capable of certain things, um, or they can't do certain things,
yeah,
and and they're going to going to be stereotyped in lots of different ways. But that doesn't mean that they have that, but they are more than what someone else says about them. So I would say that that would be it.
you just gave me goosebumps, man. That was good.
Oh.
No, that yeah, yeah. Maybe one day we'll talk about the anxiety that a lot of us have raising black children, but especially black boys, right? I mean, yeah, let's not go there today, but that's great. That's great advice. From like a mentoring standpoint, are you do you have someone? Do you have a mentor? Like who?
Many mentors.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have just one. I have a mentor for every, and probably some in some areas more than one mentor for all the different areas of my life. So having a business, I have a business mentor. Um, for a business mentor for private practice, like being a private practice owner, business private practice owner. So I have a mentor for that. Um, I am, working on my doctorate, so I'm working on research and I'm working on just navigating being in academia as a Black woman. And I have, a mentor for that area. I have a mentor who's help, and that might help with like the job process. So I have mentors in lots of different areas of my life. I don't think that I definitely don't consider myself to be an expert in anything. Granted, I know that they would say differently being having a PhD. Like I know a lot of stuff and I am an expert in this area, but that doesn't mean that I don't need a mentor
Right.
for it. So yeah, I have lots of mentors, and that's something I've learned through my journey as well.
Yeah, tell me like, yeah, what did you learn? Like, is this something that these people that you've sought out, or like, tell me when did you realize that was important?
I think all of them were different times, but what I can say is that when I didn't feel comfortable, like there were things that I didn't know, and figuring them out on my own was um was a struggle. And so I am also an extrovert. So I feed off of other people's energy, no problem. So I like making connections. And of course, obviously I like talking to people. So I have no issue with that. But when I was in my doc program, I did not really have mentorship. And so I seeked it out in other places because I assumed that I would to receive it in my doc program. For my business, I seeked it out because it was something that I knew that I have this forest and I don't, even though I have an idea, remember I said it can just, that might not work. So, but I don't know if it doesn't work unless I am speaking to someone to mentor me through that process. So, so there, it came from a space, I guess overall in a space where I didn't, I didn't feel like I was struggling and I couldn't figure it out just on my own.
Yeah. What I'll say is a lot of what we've talked about has been connection, accountability, uh, interaction, from dealing with depression, isolation, dealing with your children, right? Mentorship. We can't be afraid to extend ourselves and ask someone. They may say no, but we need to make sure that if there's someone that's doing something that we are trying to do, if we really want to be successful, we need to be humble enough, daring enough to seek out people that can help, lead us down that path that we're trying to get down. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff. Um, so let's talk a little music. Okay. All right. I got a question for you.
Okay.
So you are driving. You got a 4 hour drive. You're in the car alone. You don't have to worry about kids. No husband. Just you. You can listen to what you want. And you got to take four. You're going to have access to four albums.
Oh man. Okay.
Four albums that you will take for this 4 hour drive.
Hmm. I'm going to say, um, can I cheat and say like the best of?
No.
Ugh, hmm. I would say Michael Jackson, Off the Wall.
Okay.
Um, Beyonce, I Am King. Oh, who's gone? Um, mm, yeah, I want to say her, but her, it's not enough music, so I can't say
Right.
that.
I was gonna say anybody that's made any music since like 2015, they're only making EPs.
Mm-hmm.
They're
It's not
like,
enough.
yeah, they're like 5 minute, five tracks and like 27 minutes long.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
You can have her, but you get so she has a couple of projects you can couple together. We'll make it one.
Okay. See, this is hard because I don't know the names of the albums. I just know, so you Spotify. I just click her,
Well, we know she has a
and they
couple.
play.
We know she has a couple.
Yes.
So um so we'll come back to that. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look up a couple of the names.
Okay.
So give me your final album.
My final album would be College Dropout.
Mm.
I might regret that later. I might think about this later and be like, we should have said.
No, it's so many. It's so many. So she does have one that's 19 tracks. The one I used to know her.
Mm-hmm.
So we assume it'll be about an hour. So we'll do that
I'll
one.
go.
Um, so you were kind of all over the place. Another story about Zara today. Um, she said we're big Michael Jackson fans in this house. Just I don't know that they grew up. I mean I mean I love it, so I think that's a big reason. So she says, who is the most famous singer in the world? And I said, I don't know, but I said probably Beyonce. She said Beyonce, and she's a Beyonce fan, although she hasn't heard as much.
Mhm.
Beyonce, yeah. Well, I thought you were gonna say someone who maybe came before her. And I said, oh, Michael Jackson, yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. He may be still more famous than Beyonce. It's very, very, very possible. So you have an um, interesting group here. So now, you have a 2-hour trip. You gotta get rid of 2 of these albums.
Okay. I'm gonna get rid of her and College Dropout.
Uh, all right, got 1-hour trip. You gotta get rid of one.
I'm gonna go with Michael. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get rid of Beyonce. I'm gonna stick with Michael.
Okay, okay. So you basically set them in order of preference.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Um. So I knew I liked you already, Asia, but you have solidified something that I don't even have to ask you, which I argue every 2 or 3 months with people on Facebook about. Do you probably know where I'm going? It's around Michael Jackson. It's the Off the Wall versus Thriller.
So I was actually debating which one would I say between Off the Wall and Thriller.
I'm an Off the Wall fan, man.
Hmm.
I mean,
I mean,
yeah.
it's the one I said.
So yeah.
So
It's yeah, there's an awesome documentary around the making of Off the Wall.
hmm,
It talks about his uh, journey, right? It's hard to fathom now, but there was a point where he wasn't hot anymore. They were like Jackson 5, they were on fire. They started to cool down. And Motown let them walk.
hmm,
And they went to Epic, right? And they were the Jacksons, and they
hmm,
were like, yeah, he's come and gone. He was a child
yeah,
star. He doesn't and he had an album or two. He was he was on a bubble in a lot of ways. Where right now it's hard to fathom that there's a alternate world where they say Michael Jackson. You say, oh yeah, the kid from Jackson 5
hmm,
without this huge, you know. But it talks about the influences. It talks about when he auditioned for The Wiz, and he met Quincy Jones. And it's really really good.
hmm. To find that.
Makes me want to go watch it. But yeah, just you really can't go wrong with Off the Wall. You really can't go wrong with Off the
Yeah.
Wall. This has been good. This has been good. I'm glad we were able to chat. I was able to learn a lot more about you. Um, Transformative Mind
Counseling.
Counseling.
Hmm.
Based in Southfield, right?
Yep. So,
Um, Serving everyone, but really, really targeted to help the Black community, people of color, right? So
hmm,
you guys are doing some awesome work. Wishing you the best of luck going into this new
thank you.
year.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays. I'm looking forward to what else you have up your sleeve.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll keep you posted.
Please, please. So until next time, thank you everyone for checking us out. Please, wherever you're watching this, please comment. Tell us what you thought. If you're on Facebook, wherever, like all that good stuff. And please continue to keep the support coming. It's greatly appreciated. All right, until next time, peace.
Bye.